Okay, let's take a look at all those times your Premier League club tried to sign a former hero of your most bitter rivals. Some of these players actually did complete the transfer, others didn't. It's a mixture. Arsenal's Sol Campbell. So let's start off this list with Sol Campbell, a man who's probably had to have an extension built onto his house to fit that massive ego. I'm not sure how he ever thought he'd get enough backing to be voted Mayor of London, considering a sizable chunk of North London views him as worse than Hitler. We all remember what he did, swapping Spurs for Arsenal in 2001 on a free transfer. Tottenham fans have pretty much wished a violent and fiery death upon him ever since. Bournemouth, Jay Rodriguez. You would forget Jay Rodriguez actually played for his country. That was only a friendly, so he can still declare for Spain if he wants. They would probably use him as a goddamn training cone. Anyway, around 5 years ago, he was a Southampton hero, scoring 17 goals during the 13-14 season. Then injury pretty much ruined his life. 5 years later, he's getting relegated to West Brom, but that didn't stop Eddie Howe sniffing around. Brighton and Glenn Murray. It's a bit of a stretch to call Glenn Murray a Crystal Palace hero, but the man did score 31 goals during the 12-13 season as they got promoted. Anyway, he actually did end up at Brighton in 2016, scored 23 goals as they got promoted, and has actually managed 20 goals in 48 Premier League appearances. That is incredible. Burnley, Grant Hanley. Grant Hanley is the epitome of championship player. I guarantee you, if Norwich get promoted, he'll get tossed into a recycling bin out the back. A former hot prospect at Blackburn Rovers, Burnley had 2 bids rejected for him back in the summer of 2015. They ended up signing Michael Keane instead and sold him for £30 million 2 years later. Cardiff City, Stephen Cocker. Stephen Cocker's career has effectively spent the past 5 years tumbling down a cliff top, smacking off the biggest jagged rocks he could find. From scoring in his England debut in 2012 to calling it quits after 2 months at Dundee, the man is still only 26. Anyway, the former Spurs prospect actually emerged on loan at Swansea in their debut Premier League season in 11-12, making 26 appearances before ending up at Cardiff 2 years later. He even scored the winner in the derby, the cheeky fella. He was also part of one of the most embarrassing Premier League defences I've ever seen. Chelsea, Luka Modric. Back in the summer of 2011, Luka Modric was probably waking up every morning in floods of tears. Tottenham kept refusing Chelsea's attempts to sign him, including a deadline day £40 million bid. When Chelsea won the Champions League that season, relegating Spurs to Thursday night football, he was probably ready to jump off a cliff. Don't worry lad, you'll soon be winning that competition pretty much every year. Crystal Palace, Liam Bridcut. Liam Bridcut is a bang average player. Anyway, Bridcut was the subject of a failed £1.75 million bid from Crystal Palace in September 2013. Everton, Michael Owen. Everton had a few cracks at Michael Owen, but come on now, that man has far too much class and loyalty to his former club to sign for their local rivals. Back in the summer of 2005, half the Premier League seemed to be interested in taking Owen from Real Madrid. He turned down Everton, holding out for Liverpool. Instead, he was stuffed onto a plane and handed a one-way ticket to Newcastle. The lad probably spent the 2-hour flight crying into his lap. Everton tried to sign him again 4 years later once his contract ran out, with the Magpies sitting in the Championship, but again, don't be silly, Owen's not the type of guy to betray the club of his dreams. Fulham, Damien Duff. I could have gone for Andre Schürrle here, but Damien Duff had more of an impact at Stamford Bridge, and he ended up back in West London following Newcastle's relegation in 2009. Huddersfield Town, Jermaine Beckford. Jermaine Beckford will always be a Leeds United hero, not just for all those goals he had scored for them in the lower leagues, but also for that Old Trafford winner in January 2010. But while at Leicester in 2012, he was flogged out to Huddersfield on loan, where he scored 8 in 21 games. Leicester City, Will Hughes. Will Hughes was linked with Leicester a few years ago. Then again, who wasn't that man linked with? Liverpool, Gabriel Heinz. There were rumours that Rafa Benitez was interested in taking Ruud van Nistelrooy in the winter of 2009, but hey, let's go for the high profile one. The one that caused the goddamn tribunal. It's a shame, Gabriel Heinz was a cult hero at Man United. He'd won the league and become a bit of a favourite. He lost his place to Patrice Evra, understandably wanted a new job. Fair enough, but why oh why was he so adamant on signing for Liverpool? He'd played in the derby. He knew this was not going to go down well. It never happened and he had to settle for the consolation of a move to Real Madrid instead. Man City, Cristiano Ronaldo. Remember when Sheikh Mansour first came to town and nobody told him how football actually worked? You know, like when you have Tal Ben-Haim and Wayne Bridge in your team, you might want to take things slowly instead of, let's chuck 100 million at Kaka. Honestly, it was like giving a 6-year-old 4 gallons of sugar and 3 hours on Football Manager.
Ronaldo has said he wants to play for the biggest club in the world, so we will see in January if he's serious. I would think £135 million. We are going to be the biggest club in the world, bigger than both Real Madrid and Manchester United.
This was 3 months after Man City just conceded 8 at Middlesbrough. It was like a short, balding fat fella winning the lotto and asking Jennifer Lawrence out on a date. Man United, Steven Gerrard. I'm not going to mention Michael Owen again, so let's go with Steven Gerrard. When Sir Alex Ferguson actually tried to take him for Liverpool in 2002. By his own admission, he'd been taught to loathe Man United, so it was never going to happen. You know, unless he was a bashed up, half-broken lad stuck in the Championship and forced to send out brochures to remind football clubs of his existence. Newcastle, Darren Bent. Joe Kinnear tried to sign Kieran Richardson a few months after he scored the winner of the time-weird derby. This was one of the many reasons why Kinnear should have been nowhere near a football club. Let's just have a daily reminder of our first derby loss in 8 years strolling around the training ground. That'll be great for morale. Darren Bent was a more sane target, with his £75,000 a week wages the reason for his move from Aston Villa collapsing in the summer of 2013. Southampton, Yakubu. How is Yakubu not 55 years old with about 7 grandkids? The man probably hasn't been asked for ID since he was 7 years old. A Portsmouth goal machine between the years 2003 and 2005, apparently Southampton, a team he scored against many times, were interested in him in May 2012. Nothing happened. Tottenham, Patrick Vieira. Patrick Vieira wants to join Tottenham, says Harry Redknapp. Look, I get that Patrick Vieira isn't big on sentiment, considering he's chosen Man City and not Arsenal as the club to start his coaching career at, but come on. surely he wouldn't have joined Spurs. Apparently in the summer 2009, he was willing to leave Inter Milan for Spurs on a freebie. And for what? For a year or two as a 32-year-old. Thankfully he came to his senses and chose Man City instead, because to see his legacy destroyed would have been an absolute shame. Watford and Derek Gray. And Derek Gray spent 2 years banging them in for Luton Town, notching 57 conference goals in 111 games. Within 3 years he was completing a £20 million switch from Burnley to Watford. What a trader. West Ham, Teddy Sheringham. Alright, well, Teddy Sheringham began his career at Millwall, way back in the goddamn Stone Age. 13 years after leaving the Den, he'd be ending up at West Ham, when most people have probably forgotten where he even started. Wolves, Solomon Rondon. I don't know how much truth there is in this, but apparently Wolves were linked with Solomon Rondon from West Brom last summer. Again, I'm not sure I believe it. He's not Portuguese for a start.